Good morning, students. Today we'll do a short topic, which is the female urethra. I hope you would have understood the male urethra. So, as the male urethra, the female urethra is also responsible for the external discharge of the urine. The female urethra is only 4 centimeters long and 6 millimeters in diameter. So it is very short, only 4 centimeters long. So developmentally, it corresponds to the upper part of the prostatic urethra of the male. That is the part that lies above the opening of the prostatic utricle. So when I taught you prostatic part of the urethra, there was a structure known as prostatic utricle. So the part of the urethra which was above the prostatic utricle, this female urethra corresponds to that part. The prostatic urethra is also 3 centimeters long, and female urethra is also 4 centimeters long. So it corresponds to that particular part. So where it begins at the internal urethral orifice of the bladder, which was situated in the neck of the bladder, and it runs anterior inferiorly behind the symphysis pubis and embedded in the anterior wall of the vagina. So it is embedded in the anterior wall of the vagina. In the cross section, if you see the cross section of the female urethra, it is of different shapes. The female urethra is crescentric in the upper part, that is semilunar shape, stellate in the middle part, that is star kind shape, and transverse in the lower part. The external urethral orifice is a sagittal slit with two lips. In the same way, the male urethra also shows different shapes in its cross section. The pre-prostatic part is stellate shape, prostatic part is crescentric in shape, membranous part is stellate again, bulbar part is transverse slit shape, and external urethral orifice is a sagittal slit shape. So what is the significance of these different shapes? They maintain the continuous stream of urine flow both in males and in females. The next, the mucosa of the urethra is much folded and contains numerous mucus glands and lacunae which opens into the urethra. The collection of the mucus glands, one on each side of the upper part of the urethra, are called the periurethral gland of Skene. So there are the mucus glands in the female urethra which are known as periurethral gland of Skene, and they are homologous with the male prostate. Like in the males, the prostate adds to the secretion of the seminal fluid. Prostate also has its secretions which adds up to the secretion of the seminal fluid. In the same way, the mucus secreted by these periurethral glands in the female urethra, it helps in lubricating the urethral opening, possibly contributes antimicrobial factors that protects urinary tract from infection, and this mucus also prevents the epithelial lining or the lumen of the urethra from the corrosive urine. So these can be the functions of the mucus secreted by these periurethral glands. The female urethra is easily dilatable and catheters or cystoscopes can easily pass through them. The next thing which we see in the female urethra is the female urethra is very prone to infections, urinary tract infections. I'll tell you the reason for it later. Then comes the arterial supply. The arterial supply is from the vesicle and the vaginal arteries, and the nerve supply, parasympathetic supply, is from second to the fourth sacral segment of the spinal cord. Somatic fibers, same segments, S2 to S4, and sensory fibers from second to fourth sacral segment of the spinal cord. Then comes the process of micturition, both in males and females. How the micturition is achieved: when the quantity of the urine exceeds 220 cc, the intravesical pressure rises. Intravesical pressure means the pressure which is inside the bladder, it rises. Then what happens? This increased pressure, it transmits signals, and then these signals initiates the micturiation. So what happens? First, there is relaxation of the perineal muscles except the sphincter urethrae. and contraction of the abdominal muscles. So first of all, there is relaxation of the perineal muscle and contraction of the abdominal muscle. This is followed by firm contraction of the detrusor and relaxation of the sphincter vesicae. What was sphincter vesicae? Sphincter vesicae was the internal urethral sphincter. So what happens? Next, the firm contraction of the detrusor and relaxation of the internal urethral sphincter or the sphincter vesicae, and lastly the sphincter urethrae or the external urethral sphincters, they relaxes and the flow of the urine begins. So there are simple steps, events that take place in micturition. So again I tell you, first there is relaxation of the perineal muscles, contraction of the abdominal muscles. Next there is contraction of the detrusor muscle and relaxation of the internal urethral sphincters, and lastly the sphincter urethrae or the external urethral sphincters, they relax and the flow of the urine begins. The bladder is emptied by the contraction of the detrusor muscle. As the contraction of the detrusor muscle occurs, the bladder gets emptied. Emptying is also assisted by the contraction of the abdominal muscles. When the urination is complete, the detrusor muscle relaxes, the sphincter vesicae contracts, and finally the sphincter urethrae or the external urethral sphincter, they contract, and then the urge passes. That is, the urination is over. So this was the small process of the micturition. If you don't understand anything in the female urethra, you can ask your queries. Next, one thing which I told you before, that the female urethra is very prone to urinary tract infection. So the reason behind it is the female urethra is very close to the vagina, and sexually transmitted diseases can pass through the vagina into the urethra. Then the urethra is very close to the anal canal in the females. Because of that, the bacteria can travel through the urethra. And thirdly, the female urethra is very short, so the bacteria can easily reach the female urethra, causing different type of infections. Thank you.